Why are you buying distressed properties? Would you buy a failing business? Let's talk about that. Hey guys, I'm Tim Diesel. I'm a commercial real estate consultant. This channel is designed to give you tips and strategies in your investing business. If you're a broker, this will definitely help your clients. So let's discuss 3 different ideas that people have, and I want to break down into them a little bit. So a lot of times when I'm representing clients and they're going to purchase a property, they'll say, I really want to find value-added opportunities, distressed assets. I want something that I could turn around and I can make a fortune on. Okay, that's fantastic. But let me ask you the question in a different way. If you're going to build a business, if you're going to buy a business, if you're going to buy a hamburger stand, would you want to start John's Hamburgers, or would you want to find a McDonald's that's already spinning and you can make a future off of it? So that's what I kind of want to break down for you today, and let's really dissect why value add distressed properties are the way to go. So first question is, why are you buying these things, right? Do you have a lot of cash in the bank? Are you looking to make a move in the future? I mean, what is it? So really, whenever you're buying a distressed asset, ideally, I would think you have some skill or someone on your team that can help you get to the finish line, right? And let's suppose that now let's break things down a little bit. Let's say there's financial distress and there's physical. Now I'm referring more to the physical, all right? I'm not talking so much about the financial aspects of the property, because you could always fix that up a little bit. Maybe it's vacant, missing a few tenants, you can get some people in there, not the end of the world. What I'm talking about is a property you have to go in there and gut a lot of it. And this could be for any property. This does not have to be apartments or retail. It could be office. It could be anything, right? Whatever kind of property it is. It could be a single family home. What are your plans with that home? So you want to bring in more cash flow. I get it, right? You want more money coming in. Now rates are really low. You want to take advantage of that money. And those cheap rates, you really want to take advantage of everything you possibly can. But what if you don't have the dry powder to get to the next step? What if you're challenged by that? So I've talked about that before, right? You bring in partners, there's all kinds of things you can do strategically to get you there. So the first question is, why are you getting into these investments? If you've never done this before, taking on something that needs a lot of work and a lot of attention is going to be a little more difficult. And make sure you have someone on your team. You can do it all by yourself. I don't recommend it, because why would you want to go learn all that the hard way? But keep in mind, whenever you're buying a distressed asset, if you bought businesses, or if you're going to buy a business, would you buy a bunch of regular pizza stands, or would you buy some Papa John's? So keep thinking about all that as you're making the investment. You want things that are already spinning. You want things that are generating cash, and you can get in there and make more cash out of it. So that's the first thing. Then, how are you financing these assets? So something that needs a bridge loan or a hard money loan, those are going to be tougher, because investors know they're kind of taking a risk. Something that's spinning like a top might be a little easier. You might be able to get 80% LTV. Depending on the bank, of course, maybe 75, 70, who knows. But if it needs a lot of work, a lot of attention, you're probably looking around 60%, maybe 65, right? Hard money bridge loans, terms aren't going to be as attractive. So look at that also. Where's your money coming from? Your investors, a lot of times I've found investors like property that's already cash flowing from day one. And they know you can get in there and maybe drive up the rents a little bit, move some things around, add to it, whatever the case is. They really prefer safer investments. Most people don't like value-added opportunities. Most investors, I should say. It's not as easy as everyone makes it seem. So it's very easy to do, but you want to really make sure you're not overshooting your efforts. So you don't want to take on maybe an 80 unit building and you've never done this before. You want to scale it down to a 6 or a 7 unit. Start off a little smaller. I wouldn't go too intense on something like that. And just know that what your plans are, right? So what are your plans with this property? Okay, I want to fix it, I want to get it going, I'm all done with it. What's your exit strategy? Are you planning on staying there? Are you going to sell it off? Are you and your investors going to work something out? So have your plan figured out. And as always, I always encourage management. You got to get the right management in there. Otherwise, you're wasting your time in this whole thing. Good management can definitely turn a property around. Bad management can drive it to the ground. Don't waste your time. If you don't have good management in place, pass on the project, pass on the property. You'll thank me for this, I promise you. If you don't have anyone to manage the property and it's not going to be you, that's not something you should be looking at, because there's no way you're going to buy a business, $1 million, $2 million business, and you're just going to put some average guy in there. What are you going to just start interviewing people all of a sudden? It's the same exact thing. People tell you it's like running a business, but no one really treats it like a business. Some investors do. I shouldn't say no one. And they do recognize there's a lot of work there. There's a lot of things you really have to figure out and drive in. Quick little story about financing. There was a property once that I really had no interest on buying. It was really small. It was an 8-unit property, and I wasn't that interested in it. But the financing was so attractive that I had to give it a look, all right? And the upside was not great, but the cash flow was going to be sustainable and it was going to be long. And that really changed my perspective. I was able to get owner financing on the property with very little money down, and I had 3 months before I had to start making payments because the owner really did not want to deal with this property. So I had to jump in there day one, take care of it. I hung on to it for a couple of years, and then I ended up selling it and moving on. So I didn't make a huge profit on the sell. Once we dispose of the asset, we generally want to make a little more money, but I didn't do very great there. I didn't lose any money, but I made my profit through the cash flow stream. So keep in mind, whenever you're buying a distressed property, and in this case, I'm talking about financially distressed, right? I'm talking about maybe you don't have the right tenants in there, management needs to be set, maybe you have to use the RUBS system and break up some utilities, whatever it is, you got to get rid of the bad tenants, fill it up. You're going to be using a different strategy entirely. Whenever you have a physical property that's physically distressed, then you're going to bring your contractors, your tradespeople, your plumbers, whatever else you need, and that's when you're getting more of those estimates. And really, the physical is much harder because you have to line everybody up on time. You got to let tenants know when you're coming, when you're leaving. Those kind of things can be time consuming. Whenever you're taking care of it on the accounting side, it's not really that difficult. You can get in there, you can move some things around, and before you know it, you can really start taking shape of your property much quicker. And just know what you're planning on doing with it. It's very important to get into a project and understand what your exit strategy is. So a lot of times people want to buy something because they say, oh, it's a great value, it's a great deal. You have no plan, you have no purpose. So you end up in this property and it does not do what you want it to do. So plan that all the way through. Whenever you're buying a distressed asset, really give it some thought. Let me dive in real quickly about what I mean when I say buying value-added properties or distressed assets. So let's say you have a couple $100,000 to invest, and whatever part of the country you're in, and let's say you want to start a business, and it's not real estate, you want to start a business and you want to, maybe you want to start a sandwich shop, like a Subway franchise. And you think, you know what, it's going to take my entire 200 grand to get into this franchise, to start selling sandwiches. By the time I build out the space, I get the tenants, all this other good stuff. Tenant improvements, not just tenants, I meant by the time you get the business off the ground. And let's say the other avenue is, hey, I'll start my own Pete's sandwiches. I'll just do my own subs. I'll do everything myself, my own design, my own layout. Now, a couple different things. And these are almost the same when it comes to property, so I'm going to break them down for you. When you have a startup business, banks don't like that. They really don't. Some banks will give you a loan. If you're going to get a loan from a bank and you tell them, hey, I just started this business, I need some equipment, whatever restaurant equipment is, I got to get going, I want to seat this many people, I've got a lease. Okay, that's fantastic. Now let's look at option two. You've got a Subway franchise. Financing is going to be easier. Name recognition, all that stuff, branding, everything is going to be much easier. That's the same way when you're looking at an apartment building. If you're looking at a 30-unit apartment building that's in great shape, it's got a waiting list that's ready to go, you may not get in there and step maybe a couple of steps or a couple of moves in, and now you're raising up the revenue. But if you plan on buying these assets long term, it's going to be much, much easier to manage, and you make much more money because things are already spinning. You're taking over everything else in place. Now, when you buy a distressed asset, it's kind of what you're doing. You're doing a startup. So you can make much more money because it's very little to start up a sandwich shop. It doesn't take you a whole lot. It may not take you a couple $100,000. You may have to get a lease, get some equipment, get some people to cook the food. You're ready to go. And the upside is great, but it's going to take you longer to get there. The other way, you're buying an operation that's already coming through. And that's kind of what I want to portray. When you're buying a distressed asset, understand and recognize what you're getting into and know you need people to help you. Don't just look at the finish line. Look at it from a different perspective.